Every Christmas Eve, Jared Voss did the same thing. He sat alone in his sprawling penthouse, a crystal glass of aged whiskey in hand, watching the city lights shimmer like cold, distant stars. The silence was deafening. Gifts sat unopened in corners, and a bare Christmas tree stood like a skeleton in the shadows, a monument to everything he had lost. For 5 long years, the billionaire CEO of Vostek had turned this night into a ritual of quiet, bitter solitude, his heart frozen behind walls of money and success. And then it came. A sound that shattered the stillness. 3 soft knocks on his door. Jared frowned. No one knocked. Not here. Not tonight. Slowly, he set down his glass and crossed the marble floor, his footsteps echoing like a heartbeat. When he opened the door, he found the last thing he expected. Hope, wearing a warm smile and holding a tray of cookies. Welcome to Life in Stories, where every tale touches the heart and reminds us what truly matters. Whether you're watching from a cozy corner or a busy commute, we're so glad you're here. Hit subscribe, drop your location in the comments, and let's begin this beautiful journey together. The penthouse occupied the entire 47th floor of the Meridian Tower, a glass and steel monument to Jared Voss's relentless ambition. Tonight, it felt less like a home and more like a mausoleum suspended among the clouds. Jared stood motionless by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching snowflakes drift past like forgotten memories. The city below sparkled with holiday cheer, strings of lights wound around lampposts, families hurrying home with shopping bags, couples laughing as they ducked into warm restaurants. From this height, their joy seemed impossibly distant, belonging to a world he had voluntarily exiled himself from years ago. He took a slow sip of whiskey, letting the familiar burn travel down his throat. The amber liquid had become his only companion on these nights, its warmth a poor substitute for human connection but reliable nonetheless. Unlike people, the bottle never disappointed him. It never promised forever and then walked out the door. Behind him, the penthouse stretched in cold magnificence. Italian marble floors gleamed under recessed lighting. A Steinway grand piano sat untouched in the corner, its polished surface reflecting the bare Christmas tree that stood near the fireplace like an accusation. Designer furniture, carefully curated by an interior decorator he had met exactly once, filled the space with aesthetic precision but zero warmth. Everything was expensive. Everything was empty. The tree had been his assistant's idea. Margaret had insisted that even a symbolic gesture toward the holiday might lift his spirits. She had arranged for the 7-foot Fraser fir to be delivered, positioned, and lit with elegant white lights. But the ornaments remained boxed in the storage room. Jared couldn't bring himself to hang them. Decorating meant acknowledging the season, and acknowledging the season meant remembering. He didn't want to remember. Yet the memories came anyway, uninvited guests that refused to leave. 5 years ago, this penthouse had echoed with laughter. Victoria had danced through these rooms in her silk robe, champagne in hand, planning their future with infectious enthusiasm. She had talked about children, about family traditions, about building something meaningful together. Jared had believed every word. On Christmas Eve, she had left. No warning. No explanation. Just a handwritten note on the kitchen counter and an engagement ring placed carefully beside it. He had read that note 100 times, searching for answers in her elegant handwriting, finding only phrases that meant nothing. I can't do this anymore. You deserve someone who can love freely. Please don't look for me. He had looked anyway. Private investigators, mutual friends, desperate late-night calls to anyone who might know where she had gone. Eventually, the search had consumed him until a business partner had pulled him aside and delivered a brutal truth. Victoria didn't want to be found. She had chosen to leave, and no amount of money or influence could change that. Jared had stopped looking. He had stopped hoping. He had channeled every ounce of energy into Vostek, building his empire higher and higher as if success could fill the hollow space in his chest. It couldn't. But it gave him something to do besides feel. Now, at 43, he was worth $12 billion and couldn't name a single person who would notice if he disappeared tonight. The clock on the mantel struck 8, its chime breaking the silence. Jared drained his glass and moved to pour another when the sound stopped him mid-stride. 3 soft knocks. He turned toward the door, frowning. The building security was impeccable. No one reached this floor without clearance. Margaret had gone home hours ago, and he hadn't ordered any deliveries. Perhaps a neighbor, though he had never exchanged more than a polite nod with any of them. The knocks came again, slightly louder this time. Curiosity overrode his irritation. Jared crossed the marble floor, his footsteps echoing in the vast space, and pulled open the heavy oak door. A woman stood in the hallway, petite and bright-eyed, holding a ceramic tray covered with a festive cloth. Her coat was modest, practical, dusted with snowflakes that hadn't yet melted. Behind her, partially hidden by the folds of her coat, a small face peered up at him with enormous brown eyes. "Mr. Voss." The woman smiled, and something about the genuine warmth in her expression made Jared's chest tighten unexpectedly. "I'm Daisy. I work at the cafe downstairs, Rosie's on the corner. This is my daughter, Mila." Jared blinked. He vaguely recalled the cafe. He had never been inside. "We baked Christmas cookies," Daisy continued, lifting the tray slightly. "It's something we do every year. Share them with neighbors. I know we're not exactly neighbors, but the doorman mentioned you might appreciate some holiday cheer, and Mila insisted." The little girl stepped forward, emboldened by her mother's words. She couldn't have been older than 6, with curly brown hair escaping from beneath a knitted hat and a gap-toothed smile that seemed to illuminate the sterile hallway. "They're chocolate chip and cinnamon," Mila announced proudly. "I helped mix the dough." Jared opened his mouth to decline, to offer a polite excuse and close the door on this unwanted intrusion. But something in the child's hopeful expression stopped him. She looked at him as though he were a person deserving of kindness, not a billionaire to be impressed or avoided. He hesitated, glancing between them. "I suppose you should come in." The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. But Daisy was already stepping through the doorway, Mila bouncing beside her, and the aroma of fresh-baked cookies filled his senses with almost painful nostalgia. Mila stopped abruptly in the center of the living room, her small mouth falling open as she surveyed the penthouse. Her gaze swept across the piano, the windows, the gleaming floors, and then landed on the Christmas tree. "Mommy," she whispered, scandalized, "that tree is naked." Daisy laughed softly, but Jared felt the observation like a physical blow. The child had articulated what he couldn't admit. His life was exposed, barren, stripped of everything that mattered. Without waiting for permission, Mila shrugged off her little backpack and began rummaging through it. She produced a handful of handmade ornaments, paper stars, glittered pine cones, a lopsided angel crafted from popsicle sticks, and marched toward the tree with determination. "Mila, honey, we should ask." Daisy started, but the little girl was already hanging her first ornament, a crooked star that caught the light and scattered tiny rainbows across the marble floor. Jared watched, frozen, as this stranger's child decorated his forgotten tree with treasures that probably cost nothing but meant everything. A lump formed in his throat, thick and unexpected. "I'm sorry," Daisy said quietly, moving to stand beside him. "She gets carried away. I can stop her if—" "No." The word escaped before Jared could stop it. "Let her finish." They stood together in silence as Mila hummed a Christmas carol, draping tinsel and positioning her handmade decorations with serious concentration. When she finished, she stepped back and admired her work, hands on her hips like a tiny artist surveying a masterpiece. "There," she declared. "Now it's a real Christmas tree." Something cracked inside Jared's chest, something that had been frozen so long he had forgotten it could still break. He looked at this child, this waitress, these simple cookies on their ceramic tray, and felt the first tremor of an emotion he had buried years ago. Hope. It terrified him. The cookies disappeared within 2 days. Jared found himself rationing them, savoring each one as though they were precious artifacts rather than simple holiday treats. He would sit at his kitchen dazed, a space he rarely used, and eat them slowly, letting the cinnamon and chocolate melt on his tongue while replaying the memory of Mila's gap-toothed smile. On the third day after their visit, he did something unprecedented. He left his penthouse and walked to Rosie's cafe. The establishment occupied a modest corner space at street level, wedged between a dry cleaner and a bookshop. Jared had passed it countless times without ever glancing through its fogged windows. Now he stood outside like a nervous teenager, watching the warm glow emanate from within, hearing the muffled sounds of conversation and clinking dishes. He pushed open the door. The cafe was small but immaculate, decorated with mismatched vintage furniture and hand-painted signs advertising daily specials. The aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods enveloped him immediately, triggering a longing for simpler times he couldn't quite name. A dozen customers occupied various tables, their laughter and chatter creating a symphony of human connection that felt foreign to his ears. Daisy stood behind the counter, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, an apron tied around her waist. She was taking an order from an elderly gentleman, her smile patient and genuine despite the visible exhaustion shadowing her eyes. When she noticed Jared hovering near the entrance, her expression transformed into surprised delight. "Mr. Voss." She finished with her customer and waved him forward. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Jared," he corrected, surprising himself. "Please, call me Jared." "Jared, then." She gestured toward a small table near the window. "Sit, please. Coffee. On the house." He wanted to protest. The notion of accepting free anything felt absurd given his wealth, but something about her insistence made refusal impossible. He sat, and within minutes, Daisy appeared with 2 steaming mugs and slid into the chair across from him. "Mila hasn't stopped talking about your tree," she said, wrapping her hands around her cup. "She's already planning what ornaments to make next year." "I hope that's not presumptuous." "It's not." Jared cleared his throat, unaccustomed to casual conversation. "She's remarkable. She's my whole world." Daisy's voice softened, carrying a weight that spoke of countless sacrifices. "After her father passed, she became my reason for everything." Jared felt the words land heavily in his chest. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. Car accident, 3 years ago." Daisy stared into her coffee. David was coming home from his night shift. Icy roads, a truck that couldn't stop in time. Mila was only 3. She barely remembers him now, which is somehow worse than if she remembered everything. The cafe bustled around them, but Jared felt as though they existed in a separate bubble, insulated from the noise. He recognized grief when he saw it, the way it lingered in the corners of someone's eyes, the way it colored every word with subtle shadows. "How do you manage?" he asked quietly. Daisy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I work here from 6 until 2, then I clean offices downtown until 8. Mila stays with Mrs. Patterson next door. She's a retired teacher who refuses to accept payment, bless her heart. Weekends I pick up catering shifts when I can find them." She shrugged. "You do what you have to do." Jared calculated quickly in his mind. 3 jobs, a young child, no partner. The mathematics of survival left no room for rest, for joy, for anything beyond mere existence. Yet Daisy had taken time on Christmas Eve to bake cookies and share them with a stranger in a penthouse. "Why did you come to my door?" The question emerged before he could stop it. "You didn't know me." Daisy considered this. "Honestly. The doorman mentioned you'd been alone every Christmas for years." Mila overheard and got this look on her face, the same look she gets when she sees a stray cat or a wilted flower. She decided immediately that you needed cookies and company. A genuine smile crossed her face. "I've learned not to argue with her instincts. She's usually right about people." Before Jared could respond, a small tornado burst through the cafe's back door. "Mommy, Mrs. Patterson let me." Mila stopped mid-sentence, spotting Jared. Her face exploded into radiant joy. "Mr. Jared, you came to visit us." She launched herself at him without hesitation, wrapping her small arms around his neck in a hug that smelled of finger paint and strawberry shampoo. Jared froze, uncertain how to respond to such unguarded affection. Slowly, awkwardly, he patted her back. "Hello, Mila. Did you come for cookies? We have more cookies. Mommy made extra because I told her you really, really like them." She pulled back, studying his face with intense seriousness. "Your tree looked so much better after I fixed it. Did you keep my ornaments?" "Every single one." Her smile could have powered the entire city grid. Over the following week, Jared found excuses to return to Rosie's cafe daily. He told himself it was for the coffee, which was admittedly excellent. He told himself it was convenient, which was laughably untrue given the gourmet machines in his penthouse. The truth, which he barely admitted even to himself, was that he craved those stolen moments of connection. He learned that Mila loved dinosaurs, particularly velociraptors, which she considered the smartest ones. He discovered that Daisy had once dreamed of becoming a veterinarian before life redirected her path. He found himself sharing stories of his own childhood, memories he hadn't accessed in decades, surprised that they still existed somewhere inside him. One evening, Daisy mentioned casually that their apartment's heating had been unreliable. "The landlord keeps promising to fix it, but promises don't keep a 6-year-old warm at night." Jared said nothing, but the next morning, an anonymous donor arranged for the building's entire heating system to be replaced. When Mila's backpack strap broke, a new one appeared at the cafe. Purple with dinosaur patches, exactly her taste. Jared claimed ignorance when Daisy questioned him, but the knowing look in her eyes suggested she wasn't fooled. He began researching after-school programs, finding ones that offered scholarships and enrichment opportunities. He compiled information about financial assistance programs Daisy might not know existed. He did these things quietly, carefully, terrified of overstepping yet unable to stop himself. For the first time in years, Jared Voss cared about something beyond quarterly earnings and market projections. He cared about whether a little girl had warm mittens and whether her mother could rest occasionally without financial terror gnawing at her dreams. But his research uncovered something else. Something that sent cold dread through his veins. While investigating available support systems, Jared's legal team stumbled upon a concerning detail. Mila's maternal aunt, a woman named Vivian Cross, had recently filed preliminary inquiries with Family Court Services. The paperwork was vague but suggested potential custody interest. Jared stared at the report, his jaw tightening. Daisy had never mentioned a sister. Whatever history existed between them, it clearly wasn't friendly if Vivian hadn't been present in Mila's life. And now, suddenly, this absent relative was making legal inquiries? Something was wrong. Jared pulled out his phone and began making calls. His army of lawyers, usually deployed for corporate acquisitions and contract negotiations, would now serve a different purpose entirely. He would protect this family. This fragile, beautiful family that had wandered into his frozen world and begun thawing it piece by piece. He would not let anyone take Mila from her mother. That night, watching the snow fall past his penthouse windows, Jared realized the full weight of what had happened. He wasn't just invested financially or intellectually. He was invested emotionally, completely, irreversibly. These two strangers had become his reason to hope. And hope, he was discovering, made you vulnerable in terrifying ways. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by certified mail to Daisy's cramped apartment above the dry cleaner. Jared happened to be there, having brought breakfast pastries from a bakery across town. Another excuse to spend time with the small family that had become his anchor. He watched Daisy's face drain of color as she read the document. "What is it?" Jared stepped closer, alarmed by her sudden trembling. Daisy sank onto the worn sofa, the paper shaking in her hands. "It's from my sister, Vivian." She spoke the name like a curse. "She's filing for emergency custody of Mila." The words hit Jared like a physical blow. He had hoped his legal team's preliminary findings were wrong, that the inquiry would amount to nothing. But here was the proof, stark and official, threatening to destroy everything. On what grounds? Jared kept his voice steady, though fury churned beneath his calm exterior. She claims I'm an unfit mother. Working too many jobs, unstable housing, inadequate supervision. Daisy's voice cracked. She hasn't seen Mila since David's funeral. 3 years of nothing. No calls, no birthday cards, no interest whatsoever. And now she wants to take my daughter. Mila appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed velociraptor. Mommy, why are you crying? Daisy quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile. It's nothing, sweetheart. Grown-up stuff. But Mila wasn't fooled. She climbed onto the sofa and wrapped her small arms around her mother's neck, glaring at the letter as though she understood it was the enemy. Jared felt something fundamental shift inside him, a protective instinct so fierce it almost frightened him. I'm going to help you fight this, he said quietly. Whatever it takes. Daisy looked up at him, vulnerability naked in her eyes. Jared, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. He knelt beside them, meeting her gaze with unwavering certainty. I want to. Let me. The following weeks became a blur of legal consultations, document gathering, and strategy sessions. Jared assembled a team of the city's finest family law attorneys, specialists who typically handled celebrity divorces and corporate custody disputes. They worked around the clock, building a case that demonstrated Daisy's devotion, stability, and the strong support network she had cultivated. Jared learned things about Vivian Cross that hardened his resolve. She had a history of financial instability, multiple failed business ventures, and a string of relationships that ended badly. Her sudden interest in Mila coincided suspiciously with the discovery that David's life insurance policy, modest but significant, remained in a trust for his daughter. She wants the money, Jared stated flatly during one strategy meeting. This isn't about Mila at all. His lead attorney, a formidable woman named Catherine Wells, nodded grimly. We'll expose that motivation in court. But we need more than accusations. We need to demonstrate that Mila's current environment is not only adequate but exceptional. Jared understood what she was implying. His involvement, his resources, his commitment, his willingness to provide stability, could make the difference. But it would require him to step out of the shadows and declare publicly what he had only recently admitted to himself. He was ready. The custody hearing took place on a gray January morning, 3 weeks after Christmas. The family courtroom was smaller than Jared expected, intimate in a way that made the proceedings feel intensely personal. Vivian Cross sat at the opposing table, her expensive suit and practiced expressions failing to mask the calculation in her eyes. Daisy sat rigid beside Catherine, her hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Jared positioned himself directly behind her, a silent pillar of support. The hearing proceeded with excruciating tension. Vivian's attorney painted a picture of a struggling single mother, overwhelmed and under-resourced, unable to provide the stability a child deserved. He emphasized the long working hours, the modest apartment, the lack of extended family support. Each accusation landed like a blade in Daisy's heart. Jared watched her shrink incrementally, doubt creeping into her posture despite Catherine's reassuring whispers. Then it was their turn. Catherine called character witnesses, Mrs. Patterson, who testified tearfully about Daisy's dedication, Mila's teacher, who described a happy, well-adjusted child thriving in her mother's care, the cafe owner, who spoke of Daisy's reliability and warmth with customers. Finally, Catherine called Jared Voss to the stand. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The billionaire CEO stepping forward in a custody case involving a waitress was unexpected, to say the least. Jared felt every eye upon him as he took his seat, but he focused only on Daisy's face. Her hope, her fear, her trust. Mr. Voss, Catherine began, can you describe your relationship with Ms. Daisy Mercer and her daughter Mila? Jared took a breath. 3 weeks ago, I was a man who had forgotten how to live. I existed in isolation, convinced that love and connection were vulnerabilities I couldn't afford. Then Daisy and Mila knocked on my door with Christmas cookies, and everything changed." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I have watched Daisy work 3 jobs without complaint, sacrifice every comfort for her daughter's well-being, and still find time to bake cookies for a stranger who looked lonely. I have watched Mila bring joy into every room she enters, secure in her mother's love, thriving despite circumstances that would break most adults." His voice strengthened. "This court has heard allegations of instability and inadequacy. I see the opposite. I see a mother whose devotion is absolute, whose sacrifices are immeasurable, whose love creates a home regardless of square footage or bank account balance." Jared turned to face the judge directly. "Your Honor, I am prepared to provide whatever support this family needs. Financial, practical, emotional. Not because I pity them, but because they have given me something I thought I had lost forever. They have given me a reason to hope, to connect, to believe in family again." He glanced at Mila, who sat in the gallery with Mrs. Patterson, watching with wide, solemn eyes. "That little girl deserves to stay with the mother who has loved her unconditionally since birth. And I intend to stand beside them, not as a benefactor, but as family. For as long as they'll have me." The courtroom fell silent. Vivian's attorney attempted a cross-examination, questioning Jared's motives, suggesting his involvement was recent and superficial. But Jared answered each challenge with unwavering conviction, his sincerity impossible to dismiss. When Catherine presented financial records showing Vivian's true interest in Mila's trust fund, the case crumbled entirely. The judge's expression shifted from neutral to disapproving as evidence mounted that this custody bid was motivated by greed rather than genuine concern for the child. The ruling came swiftly. "This court finds no evidence supporting the claim of parental unfitness," the judge announced. "Ms. Mercer has demonstrated exceptional dedication to her daughter's welfare. The petition for emergency custody is denied, and this matter is dismissed with prejudice." Daisy collapsed into sobs of relief. Jared was there immediately, wrapping his arms around her as she trembled against his chest. Mila broke free from Mrs. Patterson and launched herself at them both, creating a tangle of tears and laughter and overwhelming emotion. "Thank you," Daisy whispered against his shoulder. "Thank you for fighting for us." Jared pulled back slightly, cupping her face in his hands. "I'm not going anywhere. Not ever." Mila tugged at his sleeve. "Does this mean you're staying? For real?" He knelt to her level, this remarkable child who had decorated his bare tree and unlocked his frozen heart. "For real, Mila. I promise." She considered this with characteristic seriousness, then nodded approvingly. "Good. Because you still need help with your tree. And I have lots more ornaments planned." Jared laughed. A genuine, full laugh that surprised even himself. The sound echoed through the courtroom, a declaration of joy that felt like resurrection. The threat had passed. The storm had broken. And from its aftermath, something beautiful was beginning to grow. 1 year later, the penthouse was unrecognizable. Jared stood by the same floor-to-ceiling windows where he had once nursed whiskey and despair, but the view had transformed entirely. Not the city below, that remained unchanged, glittering with holiday lights and bustling with last-minute shoppers. What had changed was everything reflected in the glass behind him. The bare Christmas tree that had stood like a skeleton was now magnificent, bursting with ornaments collected throughout the year. Mila's handmade creations hung alongside elegant crystal pieces, velociraptor figurines nestled between traditional angels, and strings of popcorn garland wove through branches heavy with memories. Each decoration told a story: the paper snowflake from Mila's spring art class, the ceramic heart Daisy had painted during a summer pottery workshop, the golden star Jared had chosen himself during an October afternoon when hope had finally stopped feeling foreign. The marble floors, once cold and echoing, were now scattered with colorful rugs and the occasional abandoned toy. Family photographs lined the walls, candid shots of beach trips, birthday celebrations, quiet Sunday mornings. The Steinway piano, silent for so many years, bore evidence of Mila's enthusiastic practice sessions. Sheet music for Jingle Bells propped open, a stuffed dinosaur perched on the bench as her loyal audience. "Daddy! Daddy, wake up! It's Christmas!" The words still sent electricity through Jared's chest every time he heard it. Daddy! He had officially become one 6 months ago, when the adoption papers were finalized and Mila had thrown her arms around his neck, declaring him the best daddy in the whole universe, even better than dinosaurs. He turned from the window as Mila came barreling down the hallway, her reindeer pajamas slightly too big, her curly hair a magnificent disaster of sleep tangles and excitement. She launched herself at him with the complete trust of a child who had never known him to let her fall. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." Jared caught her easily, spinning her once before settling her on his hip. At 7 now, she was almost too big for this, but neither of them was ready to abandon the tradition. "The cookies are ready," Mila announced breathlessly. "Mommy said I could frost them myself this year, and I only ate 3, okay, maybe 4, while I was decorating." "Only 4? That shows remarkable restraint." Mila giggled, the sound filling the penthouse with music more beautiful than any symphony. "Can we do presents now? Please, please, please." After breakfast, Daisy's voice floated from the kitchen, warm with amusement. "And after someone brushes her teeth and combs that bird's nest she calls hair." "Mommy," Mila protested, but she was already squirming down from Jared's arms, racing toward the bathroom with the boundless energy that defined her existence. Jared walked toward the kitchen, following the aroma of fresh coffee, cinnamon rolls, and something undefinably like home. Daisy stood at the counter, her hair pulled back in a loose braid, wearing the cashmere sweater he had given her last Christmas. She looked up as he approached, her smile carrying the quiet intimacy they had built through countless small moments. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning." He crossed to stand beside her, their shoulders touching as they looked out at the transformed penthouse. "Remember last year, when this place felt like a museum?" Daisy laughed. "I remember being terrified I'd break something. Everything was so perfect and untouchable. Now look at it." Jared gestured toward the living room, where Mila's art projects covered the refrigerator, where blankets were draped over furniture for impromptu fort building, where life had exploded into every sterile corner. "It's chaos." "Beautiful chaos," Daisy corrected. "Beautiful chaos," he agreed. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching snow fall past the windows. Jared thought about the man he had been 12 months ago. Frozen, isolated, convinced that love was a weakness he couldn't afford. That man seemed like a stranger now, a ghost from a life that no longer existed. "I have something for you," he said quietly, "before Mila comes back and chaos officially begins." He pulled a small velvet box from his robe pocket. Daisy's breath caught, her eyes widening as he opened it to reveal a simple diamond ring. Elegant, timeless, chosen specifically because it reminded him of her. Beautiful without pretension, strong without hardness. "I'm not asking you to answer today," Jared said carefully. "I know we've built something unconventional, and I don't want to rush what's working. But I want you to know that I'm ready. Whenever you are. For whatever forever looks like with you and Mila." Daisy's eyes glistened. She reached up, touching his face with gentle fingers, and kissed him softly. "Ask me," she whispered. "What?" "Ask me properly. Right now." Jared's heart hammered against his ribs. He hadn't planned this, hadn't expected her readiness, but he knelt anyway, right there on the kitchen floor, holding the ring up to the woman who had knocked on his door with cookies and stayed to rebuild his entire world. "Daisy Mercer, will you marry me?" "Yes." The word came instantly, wrapped in tears and laughter. "Yes, absolutely, completely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger just as small footsteps thundered down the hallway. "Did I miss something?" Mila appeared, toothbrush still in hand, toothpaste foam around her mouth. Her eyes locked onto the ring, then widened to impossible dimensions. "Are you getting married?" "We are," Daisy confirmed, laughing through her tears. Mila shrieked with joy, launching herself at them both, creating a tangle of limbs and laughter on the kitchen floor. I knew it. I knew this would happen. Mrs. Patterson owes me $5. You bet on our engagement? Jared asked, incredulous. She said you were too scared to ask. I said you were brave. Mila shrugged with 7-year-old pragmatism. I was right. The morning unfolded in perfect imperfection. They opened presents, practical gifts for Daisy, dinosaur everything for Mila, and for Jared, a handmade coupon book from his daughter promising free hugs and help with boring adult stuff. They ate cinnamon rolls until they felt sick, built a blanket fort around the Christmas tree, and watched holiday movies while snow accumulated on the windowsills. In the afternoon, Mila disappeared into the kitchen with Daisy, emerging an hour later with a tray of freshly baked cookies. Chocolate chip and cinnamon, the same recipe that had started everything. Ready? Daisy asked her daughter. Mila nodded solemnly, clutching the tray with ceremonial importance. Together they walked to the penthouse door, opened it, and stepped into the hallway. Then Mila knocked 3 times, the same rhythm that had first interrupted Jared's solitude exactly 1 year ago. Jared played along, waiting a beat before opening the door with exaggerated surprise. Who could that be on Christmas? Mila grinned, gap-toothed and radiant. We thought you might like some holiday cookies. It's just a little something from our family to yours. The words, echoed from that first fateful night, brought tears to Jared's eyes. He knelt to her level, accepting the tray with trembling hands. Thank you, he whispered. For everything. Mila leaned forward, pressing her small forehead against his. That's what family does, Daddy. We share cookies and love and stuff. Behind her, Daisy watched with shining eyes, the diamond catching light on her finger. The penthouse glowed with warmth, laughter echoing off walls that had known only silence for so long. Jared Voss, the billionaire who had stayed alone every Christmas, finally understood what he had been missing all along. It wasn't about wealth or success or protecting himself from pain. It was about opening doors, literal and metaphorical, and letting love walk through. Family wasn't built through biology or obligation. It was built through cookies and courage, and the simple choice to keep showing up. 3 knocks at a time. Thank you for watching until the very end. You're the reason we create these stories. If this touched your heart, subscribe and share with someone who needs it. Tell us in the comments. What moment moved you most? Until next time, keep believing in love, hope, and second chances.